Hey mini enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back. It's part 15 of the project kit build. Firstly, I do apologise, I've got a horrible cold again, been laid up for the last couple of days, so unfortunately I missed a day working on kit today, but the good thing about two of you working on the car is that Mark was able to carry on with some bits on kit, so next update will be just from Mark. So just going over a few little clips from the previous week, just showing sort of the final end product of what we've done. And here I think there's a bit of a contest here on how many pairs of mole grips can you fit on the rear quarter of a Mini. So that was Mark just getting everything lined up for when I went down there to do the welding. I think there's about 11 pairs of mole grips there, but you can never have enough mole grips, can you? So there's quite a lot going on in this week's update, and there's quite a bit of detail towards the end of the video actually, so I slowed down some little bits of the welding just to kind of help some people. They've asked us for more detailed shots on the welding. Lone Star Mini Randy, it's worth a either hang on or fast forward to the end. There's a few slower bits of the welding there. But at the moment I'm just doing some repair sections on that offside rear wheel arch behind sort of the headlight and the rear valance there. So just needed a small repair section in there. Nothing too difficult. So I do apologise at the moment, obviously it's a bit of a far off shot, but I do move the camera shortly and we get a bit more close up. It's always difficult to find places to put the camera where it's not going to get in the way, and as you'd have seen, I think it was part 13 of the project kit build, we banged our head lots of times. It was actually 10 times in total. I think it was 7 from Mark and 3 from me. So I did ask at the time actually, anyone wants to guess the right amount, I'll send some stickers out, and there were 2 people which guessed the right amount of time, so I will stick some stickers in the post to you. So this update, you'll be pleased to know, or certainly I'm pleased to know, you might not be, but this is the actual last update of the bodywork, the metal work on the car. So it's finished at the end of this episode. So in the next update we'll be moving on to seam sealing and prepping the car for paint. So Mark went out today, bought the paint for the car, paint and consumables. It come to around about 500 quid, so it wasn't cheap, but like I say, the paint's going to be pretty special. I think it's being painted in 2-pack. Mark's doing it himself, so I'll be sure to capture that on video, or I'll certainly try to. Paintwork is actually one area which is not my speciality. So I've done a few bits of paint on cars before. I've painted roofs, bonnets, bits of body kits, but I've never painted a whole car before, so Mark's better at painting than I am. It does actually get a little bit difficult to narrate these videos sometimes. When it comes to narrating it, I basically play back the video in like a preview box. So the preview box I'm watching is, I think, probably 2 inches by 4 inches or something like that. It might be 4 by 3. But yeah, it's very small, so I struggle to see the detail on it. I edit these videos using Windows Movie Maker, which I know there's better ones out there, but I've probably done over 150 videos now, so you kind of get used to what you use, and I know my way around it very well. But I must change over sometime. There are better video editing packages out there, but Windows Movie Maker works pretty well for me, and I'm to say I've had lots of use of it, so I'm pretty confident with it. So Mark's just prepping the rear valance there, just spraying weld-free primer on it, ready to go on the car. Frustrating thing actually with weld-free primer is it dries pretty quickly, but you always kind of forget to spray the bits in advance. So you pick the panel up, decide you're going to weld it on, and then work out you need to spray the weld-through primer on. So to be honest, it dries in sort of 15-20 minutes, but as you'd have seen and lots of people comment, you see the pace me and Mark work, so we don't like waiting around for stuff. Quite a few people have asked actually, so just to give you a bit of info, is how long have we taken to get to this stage, and I do actually keep a little log of the hours I've spent on the car, so you can pretty much double that. Mark works on the car when I'm with him. He does the odd bit here and there when I'm not around, but I've spent about 50 hours on the car so far, so you can double that, so 100 hours for both of us. So I might have mentioned in previous episode actually, some people are always surprised how much it costs to get a car restoration done like this, but when you start to see how much time and effort goes into it, you know, it starts to give you a good idea. So we just had a bit of discussion there. Where that rear valance goes on, you're actually joining 3 panels together. It's the rear sort of boot panel, the boot floor, and the rear valance. And Mark was just a little bit sceptical whether it would spot weld through all 3, so I just gave it a little practice on the 2 panels that were there, just to make sure no one had sprayed between the 2, actually make sure there was electrical conductivity there, and there was. So when it comes to it, we'll have a go at welding through all 3 panels. Luckily the spot welder's quite powerful, so it'll just be a case of increasing the on time or the duty cycle of the spot welder, just to put a bit more heat into it, make sure it penetrates through all 3 panels. Just here I'm welding in a repair section, just in that rear arch, and Mark's actually got a bit of bent over copper pipe here. I think he's actually just shaping it at the moment. So it's a bit of copper pipe, it's squashed flat, so you can push that onto the back of the panel. And what that allows me to do is it gives something for you to work the weld up against. So the weld won't stick to copper, but obviously copper is electrically conductive. So it allows you to put something on the back of a hole, and you can fill the hole up without the weld sticking to the copper on the back of it. It's very, very useful actually. So I guess the only good thing about missing a week because of illness is, like I said, Mark has been working on the car today, so I know what he's done, but I won't see it till next week, so it's something to look forward to for me actually. It'd be quite a surprise. I do know he was doing the seam sealing today, so he wanted to get a really sort of original looking seam sealer rather than just brush painting it on. When you look at the shell actually, the seam sealer looks like it's sprayed on. It's quite lumpy and wavy, and it's very difficult to recreate that look, although Mark, being the perfectionist he is, went on to, I think it was the Worth website, and they do the proper applicator, which would have been similar to what was used when the shell was built to give a factory finish. So Mark's bought the proper Worth applicator and the proper original seam sealer. It was very expensive. I think the applicator was 200 quid. It's air driven, but we'll see. Hopefully it will give a really nice finish. I'm sure it will. So we just rolled the car onto the back here, ready to have a go at cleaning everything up, ready to fit the rear valance. Quite funny actually, when we were doing the rear subframe, heel boards and that sort of thing, Dave Jaguar asked why we didn't roll the car onto its back. Yeah, I don't know why we didn't actually, it would have been much easier, but maybe it's just we like a challenge. So you can actually see that near side rear quarter where it's had a couple of repair sections, that triangular bit and the rear sort of corner there. Looks a bit rough at the moment, but that's still waiting to be sort of ground down, get rid of the weld line and then just a skimmer filler over that. Mark's just prepping that rear corner for the new closing panel. And there's like a strengthening plate which goes onto the boot floor. Actually, you'll see that's 3 panels thick there, which is where the rear subframe mounts bolt on. So that's a pretty strong section of the car, that, but I suppose it's going to be with it's a structural point for the subframe. Like I say, frustratingly, bit of etch primer on there now, so it's sort of a 15-minute wait now, frustratingly. Luckily for you guys, you've not got to wait the 15 minutes, it won't be that long. I'm just using a drill bit there. I think it was 10mm, but obviously it's quite handy because if you want to get a hole the exact size, just go and grab the drill bit that fits the hole, and then you can make sure it's lined up okay. So sort of line that up with the drill bit and then nut bolted it through the subframe bolts so we can make sure it's in the right place. So I've slowed this bit down for Lone Star Mini Randy, just to show how close I'm holding the tip to the metal there when I'm plug welding. It's probably a bit extreme, this is probably a little bit too close, but I find sometimes it really helps with balancing the torch, and I can sort of move the torch around on the metal, so the torch is, in some cases, they're actually touching the metal. It's quite important with plug welds to make sure you get decent penetration. So it's not a problem. You probably actually want the torch about 1 centimetre at most away from the metal. But if it's too close, it's not a problem. In fact, if anything, it just shields the weld better. The closer you get it, obviously, the less you can see of the weld. So when you're too close, you can't actually see the weld. So that's a limiting factor. But the worst it's going to do is just wear out the tip or the shroud. They're consumable items, so just buy new ones. Me having a cheeky chocolate biscuit there, shouldn't be doing that, I'm diabetic, but yeah, hard days working, need to keep the blood sugars up, that's my excuse anyway. This final bit on that rear closing panel was actually quite difficult to weld, just because it kind of closes up in a V section there, so just using a spanner and a clamp just to hold the panels together. obligatory cup of coffee there. So we don't stop for drinks. In fact, we don't stop. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. That keeps us going. Mark's just cleaning up the edges of those panels at the back there. Some quite complicated welds there, or quite a few panels joined together. I think there's a little bit of a slow-mo coming up in a moment, or a, you know, an overview of that anyway. Just making sure I can get the spot welder in on that closing panel there before we sort of tack it in place. And I've slowed this bit down actually, just to show Randy how I'm welding here. So there's two panels coming together and I'm welding the ends of the panels. So this is not like a butt weld, I'm welding the ends of the panel, so it's really difficult not to blow through them, but I just kind of what I would call pulse weld, so you know, it's sort of 1 second on, 1 second off, and it allows you to be quite gentle with the weld. So a bit of close-up detail. Mark's actually put some seam sealer inside that closing panel because once we weld on the rear valance, we're not going to be able to get in there again. So this is kind of a bit of a special moment for me. This is the last panel being welded on now. So, like I say, welding wise, that'll be it now. So we're just spot welding on here. You will notice there's quite a lot of smoke coming up from the spot welder there. And part of the reason is, I think that's because the etch primer wasn't quite dry. But we're also welding through 3 panels. So the duty cycle on the spot welder was set quite high, which means the on time is quite long, so you're obviously getting quite a lot of heat into that panel. Doesn't matter too much on that rear seam there because it's not like a big straight panel, and yeah, there might be a little bit of distortion there, but you're probably not going to see it. So I'm just cleaning the tip on the spot welder now. So the tips need cleaning quite regularly. I think, like I've mentioned in previous videos, we do have a tip cleaner. It was about 100 quid. It was very expensive, but it does do a really good job. But I find the tip needs cleaning probably every 30, 40 spot welds. Maybe a little bit more, depending how clean the weld is. Luckily, just enough room in there to get the spot welder inside. And Mark's having to go on the other side, but yeah, there was still paint on it, so I had to get the Dremel out and just clean off the paint before we can spot weld it there. So guys, thanks for watching. That's it for this week. So I should have an update for you next week, but it will be dependent on what Mark's filmed. I know he has the GoPro on there when he's working, so it'd be quite a surprise, be a surprise for me as well. So I'm looking forward to it as much as you guys are. So as always, thanks for watching and catch up with you next week. Have a great week. Thank you.